Let's talk about some of the specifics that you write about of what's wrong with the China study. Give us the big three. What are the big hits that people need to know about? And obviously we're going to whet their appetite to go read some of your columns.
Okay, well, the first one I would say has to be the whole thing with casein. Now, this is kind of what set the stage for Campbell's own interest in veganism and the elimination of animal products, because he spent a big portion of his career doing these rat studies where he was taking lab rats and exposing them to aflatoxin, which again it's a mycotoxin that's produced by plant mold, by the way, not animal foods, plants. And he exposed these rats to this toxin and then experimented with casein, which is a milk protein. And what he did was he'd take different levels of casein and feed it to the rats and see how they reacted in terms of tumor growth. And they would grow things called preneoplastic lesions in their livers, which are little growth thingies that occur before tumors. And so he did like decades of research on this. And what he found was that by varying the levels of casein fed to the rats, he could actually turn cancer growth on and off like a switch. And that's a very powerful image, and it's the way he describes it in his book, too. Because when the rats are fed 5% or less of casein in their diets, they're fine. But when they're fed more than that, they end up getting more tumors, dying sooner, getting sicker. So now that's really interesting to me, too. I think that that's a great finding and deserves attention. But the strange thing is he took this incredible leap of logic, oh my goodness, it's like the leap of doom. He took the leap of doom and he decided to extrapolate the effect of casein onto all animal protein. And it's mind-boggling. He decided that based on this research on lab rats that all forms of animal protein promote cancer, pretty much. And it really drives me bonkers because it's wrong on so many levels. First of all, the rats are not your everyday average Joe Schmo rats off the street. They have been exposed to a carcinogen, so they are already inclined to get cancer. This is not something that necessarily applies to healthy humans. So there's your one strike against that. Second of all, casein is uniquely implicated with a lot of problems, and especially when it's isolated, and refined in some way that I don't know what they do to it, but probably makes it even toxicer than it would be normally. And just to use this protein as the basis of some kind of hypothesis about all animal protein is really unfounded. And the reason he decided that animal protein is cancer promoting, whereas plant protein is cancer preventative, is because he did at least a couple of additional studies on wheat gluten and some soy protein. And he found that under the same conditions, these things did not promote cancer growth the same way casein did. So from that, he concluded, okay, plant food good, animal food bad. However, he also did a study where he took wheat gluten and he restored its limiting amino acid, which is lysine. This is the difference between plant and animal protein, is that plant protein is generally incomplete. It's low on one or more amino acids, whereas animal protein contains all of them. So he did this other study where he took gluten, he restored its amino acid, and lo and behold, it behaved the same way as casein. So it's not a matter of animal protein versus plant protein behaving differently. It's a matter of a complete protein being exposed to these rats. And the funny thing is that we all are eating complete protein, whether you're vegan or an omnivore, because if you're eating a mixture of foods, you're getting a mixture of amino acids. So whatever he found with the rats is not something that can really apply to a human in a real-world situation, unless you're somebody who eats nothing but one type of food every single day of your life. So the way he presented these things, though, it was so authoritative that, okay, the animal protein is cancer promoting, plant protein is cancer preventative, but it's just bogus. It is bogus. And it formed a large portion of his book, too, if you've read it, his whole history with doing this research. But the other funny thing is he didn't actually study other forms of animal protein before he made that conclusion either. And we have current research a lot of current research showing that other milk proteins, like whey, for instance, it's very preventative of cancer. It has a lot of properties that increase host defenses, that are immunoregulatory, that are just incredibly helpful for preventing disease. So if you're consuming foods in their whole state, which is something I believe everybody should be doing, then you're going to be drinking not casein, you're going to be drinking milk with all of its bioactive peptides and all these great components. So just the fact that he's taken this one isolated substance and used it as the foundation for so many of his conclusions it's completely unfounded. And that was one of the first things I noticed when I was trying to analyze his book. So there's your first thing, okay, Jimmy?
Uh-huh.
And let's see, next thing, probably his method for linking animal products to disease through the China study data. And this is, it wasn't obvious to me when I first started, but it was obvious as I continued looking at the numbers. And that is he takes cholesterol. He looks at total cholesterol. And he uses this as an intermediary variable between animal products and disease. And what he does is he looks at a disease and he says, okay, well, we have higher cholesterol levels seen with this particular disease in the China study, like, say, liver cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer, whatever. And then he says, okay, animal products, they're kind of associated with higher cholesterol levels. So obviously, animal products have to be causing these diseases. So that's what he says. Now, if you actually look at the numbers and you look at the data and you look at the trends and you look at the patterns, Jimmy, there is no connection between those animal products and the diseases. There's none at all. And this is something he doesn't mention in his book. He just says, he just uses cholesterol as a marker for animal product consumption. And it's, again, completely unfounded. There's no, okay, getting worked up. Whew, calm down, Denise. Sorry. I get very upset about this. I just hate the distortion of the truth. I really do. Anyway, so he does this with cholesterol. He also does it with fat at one point, and he shows that breast cancer is associated marginally with higher fat consumption. And he says, okay, well, in China, it looks like they're eating more fat if they're eating more animal products. So why don't we just say that animal products are causing breast cancer? And what's really funny about this is something that he wrote in a response, his first response to my critique, which was posted on a former vegan's blog, tynan.net. And in his critique, or in his response to my critique, he wrote that one of the counties that he was looking at in China, called Tuoli, he said the data for that county was completely wrong, because when the researchers came in to measure what their food consumption was, the people of the county decided to have a feast or something to impress the researchers, and so they're eating nothing but kind of milk and meat. And so this one county looks like it has this just astronomical consumption of milk and meat products and almost no vegetables. And this one data point, because there's only 65 counties, this one data point completely bumps up the association between fat consumption and animal product consumption. So that looks like almost 80 to 90% of the association can be between animal foods and animal foods and fat consumption is there's an 80 to 90% association between those things. So when you actually go back to the data and take out that misleading county, as Campbell has shown me, then the association between fat consumption in animal products drops down to something that's completely insignificant. So that something Campbell told me completely invalidates what he was using in the China study, what he was using to link these things together to breast cancer. So time and time again, he's using intermediary variables to link animal products to diseases when they're not actually associated with the diseases. And he makes, again, I'm getting worked up. I can't stand this. It is so frustrating. But all throughout his book, when he's interpreting the China study data, this is what he does. He cannot point to a single association between animal products and diseases, because there are none. There are none that are direct. So he always uses some other variable. And I think this is very important I do, and I wish that he had mentioned it because it pretty much destroys his own arguments.
Yeah.
So that's your second thing. And the third thing, I would say, just in general, his approach to epidemiology is really upside down, because epidemiology, in terms of generating conclusions, it's about as useful as my English degree, which I keep on hand only as fire kindle.
Hey, I have an English degree. Don't go. Sorry. Don't mean to hit on that. No.
But what he does with epidemiology, and this is something that he has readily confessed in his responses to me, is that he approached the data set already looking for an outcome. He approached the data set looking to see if he could prove or find support for the hypothesis that animal foods cause disease. And so he approached all these numbers. And Jimmy, there are 8,000 statistically significant associations that this project, the China study, uncovered. And that's a whole freaking lot. That is a lot of associations. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of them are going to be false, and a lot of them are going to be misleading. And with that many numbers, you can prove whatever the heck you want, honestly. So he fell into a trap that I like to call Where's Waldo syndrome. And now just imagine you're like 7 playing in your sandbox, and someone gives you a Where's Waldo book. And you open it up, and you're looking after page after page after page. And each page has hundreds of faces in it. But you're just looking for one person. You're looking for Waldo. You're looking for the dude with the glasses and the awesome striped sweater. So page after page after page, you ignore all the other faces just in search of this one face. And you manage to find it on every page because the publisher has promised you that it will be there. And by the time you get to the end of this book, you realize, wow, Waldo was on every single page. That is a pattern. So you decide to write a book, and you call it the Waldo study. You develop this Waldo-centric theory of the universe where Waldo is responsible for everything, and he's omniscient, and he's just everywhere. And this is what Campbell did. He started with this quest to search for this one thing, and in this quest, he managed to overlook all the other things that were surrounding it. In fact, I just wrote a post about wheat, and compared to animal products, wheat is I'm not going to say that the China study proves anything about wheat, because it doesn't, but it was very alarming because wheat is associated with heart disease in the China study data, which means that people who are eating more wheat were getting a lot more heart disease than virtually anybody else. And this is one trend that
pointed that out, right? Campbell pointed that out, right?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even mention it beyond, I think, one paragraph, and people just pounced on that. It was pretty interesting. But he gives no mention to this, for example, and he doesn't look at any other trends that are probably more pervasive than anything you could squeeze out about animal products. And so the quest to validate this hypothesis really robbed him of an opportunity to look at other things and look at what else was going on, look at other hypotheses that perhaps were more valid and more important. No, it was just the singular quest to find Waldo, to find the animal product disease link that really drove his whole examination of the data. And I think that is just such a terrible thing to do with epidemiology. It's not science. It's a word that I'm not allowed to say on your show.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm not.
It's poppycock.
It's poppycock. It is. It really is. And yeah. So